Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Meta Behind Relationships. I'm your host, Gaylon McDowell, and today we're going to be talking about religion and dating. This is a powerful subject that trips up a lot of people. So I'm hoping today that we can have a conversation that will help you understand how to tackle this difficult subject. And if you're in the midst of it, how to enhance it, transform it, change it for the better. If you're walking into a situation and circumstance where you are not sure whether you should engage in this based upon the difference of beliefs, hopefully this can be a show that can at least give you some information that you can ponder while you make your life choices. As I always do, I bring on the founder and CEO of the 5S for Love Network, Christine Burkett, to have these conversations. So, Christine, come on down. The price is right.
I felt like that's what was happening. It was a Price is Right moment.
Beautiful.
Hey, Galen, I want to say thank you in advance for having this conversation. I think with the way we're dating, that this is a real hot topic.
Yes.
People are not, they're looking, they keep saying gender. I'm dating outside of my race. No, it's more than just race, it's a religion aspect to it. And so when
Mhm.
you meet that person, one person has to make the adjustment, or neither of you make the adjustment. But then when children come into play, then that's another conversation. How are my children going to be raised, and what religion? So this is a fantastic conversation outside of the fact of dating someone who is a leader in religion. Like these two, I think these two are like really hot topics right now because it's a
Yes.
lot of things shifting. It's a lot of things shifting. So I know they're two separate topics. So I can't wait till you talk about how to date somebody who is in a religious role, because that's like dating the Pope, I think. So it's a little sketchy. It's a little
Well,
sketchy.
well, I'm sure you have a lot of questions.
I
And
do. I have a lot of questions today.
yes,
Uh, because this is like a hot topic. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what does religion, I mean, I don't even know if people understand the impact of religion. Like, what does religion do for people?
yes. So let's get past the stuff that people automatically would say. Well, people feel as though their connection to God, their
Right,
understanding of salvation or deliverance and things of that nature.
right.
I've been a theologian almost my whole adult life. I've been in
Mhm.
clergy. I've been a minister for 20 plus years. Before that, I was, teaching for years. So I'm almost 30 years in the game. So I think that I can legitimately have this conversation. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion,
Mhm.
religion gives people a sense of identity above
Mhm.
all else. Okay. Identity. But when you think about religion, the identity is okay, what is the role that I play? How do I show up in the world? All right. So religion gives you a few things depending on the religion. Some religions tell you how to dress,
Mhm.
how to talk, what is your language? All
Mhm.
right. Behavior, what is right or wrong, or what we call morality. All right. And and obviously gives you a theology and things of that nature. So what it's really giving you is an identity. And I don't think people really recognize that religion gives identities. For instance, and this is not me talking against anything. So let me just be clear.
Okay.
Um, when you, religion is very attached to the culture that it comes out of.
Hmm.
So when you see, for instance, Islam,
Mhm.
people many oftentimes change their name to Arabic names.
Yes.
Um, the clothes that they wear often, especially when you're female, is
Mhm.
dramatic differences.
Mhm.
Obviously language and things of that nature, morality, rules.
Right.
I can remember, our church building is very large. We seat 3,000 people, and I can remember one time we had a rental, and there was a bunch of Muslims in the building, and I remember walking up and I was speaking to somebody because they were doing separate men, women come in security, and I walked up to speak to some of the ladies, and because of my normal friendly nature, I, reach out to speak, whatever. And one of the women who knew me, she's like, Reverend, you know that we can't shake your hand. And it kicked back in,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, okay, they have their cultural rules. Some people who are studying Asian religions, they
Mm-hmm.
dress in a particular way, language, etc. They take on the culture,
Mm-hmm.
not just the theological beliefs. It's a sense of identity.
It is.
Right. So when you understand that religion gives you an identity, then you can understand when my identity bumps into your identity because there
Mm-hmm.
clashes in beliefs. Now, what I'm about to say, even though I'm in the religious world, one of the challenges that comes with giving a person a sense of identity is a person can lose their individualism in the midst of a group identity because now
I
you
I
go
see
ahead.
that. I
Yeah.
see that. And I see what you're saying in relation to taking on that religious identity. When I worked in the Middle Eastern school district, there was a white teacher, and the white teacher was married to a Muslim man, but she was a blonde, blue eyed woman. And I talked to Diana quite a bit. And Diana came from a totally different religious background. But when she met her husband, fell in love, she went to his religion and she wraps up and everything, just like the other women do. And she's immersed in that culture, and her children are. So you're right. And I will say this too, Diana did say she lost a lot of who she was and the way she grew up because she embraced her husband's religion, because it did become her identity. She could no longer walk out the house like I did. She had to then put, drapings on and all those type of things. Now, if she was just with us women, she could dress like this. But if there were ever going to be out in public and around men, that just wasn't an option. And I saw that transformation. So that's very interesting that you pointed that out. It did change 100%. And just to let you guys know, in the Middle Eastern culture, those women are like Chanel, everything up underneath the cloth. I just want to be clear, when you hang out with them, just the women, honey, they're into as much as we're into, but they can't publicly display that. And outside of the women's group, you would never know that they were like that. So I just want to say it's very interesting, because you're right. I feel like they do lose a lot of their identity of who they are personally
Oh
when
yeah.
they
Now this
in
is
that
not
culture.
knocking anybody's
Yeah, yeah,
religion.
no, no, it's not
People
knocking
have
anybody's
have
culture,
their choice,
100%.
but
Yeah.
from my perspective, because I'm the keep it real guy, I'm going to say to people that group thought, group culture, group identity often trumps individualism, and
Yeah.
that, and for me, uh, I have to be an individual. Now, the challenge comes into play is everybody has their
Mhm.
individual, has their identity, and it
Mhm.
has what some would consider pros and cons, depending on the individual, because everything is
Right.
not everybody's flavor. I get
No.
that, but people don't think of religion as giving them an identity, and because they don't realize the the nuance of religion, because without the nuance of, you're actually being given an identity. You're supposed to think like this. You're supposed to feel like this. I can remember my friend, uh, well-known person, the Reverend Della Reese, who was a movie star and a singer
Mhm.
and a New Thought minister.
Yeah.
In the organization that ordained me, we were ordained by the same person. And I can remember her saying when she was a little girl that when she had questions about her fundamentalist Christian background, Baptist or Pentecostal, I can't remember which one it was, and she started having questions, they would just tell her, you just need to have more faith instead of dealing with the questions, because the identity of her particular religious background and church in particular looked at that as disrespecting and questioning God.
Yeah. I can see that.
Okay, so another famous minister who recently passed a few years ago, the Bishop Dr. Barbara King out of Atlanta,
Yeah.
was originally the executive minister, or
Mhm.
it wasn't called that then, assistant minister, the Reverend Coleman at Christ Universal Temple in the 60s. She told me that I interviewed her about this actually, and she said that she came to Reverend Coleman. She was at a Baptist church, missionary Baptist church, and she came to Reverend Coleman to hear her speak, and she asked to meet with her. And she said Johnny, Reverend Coleman always told us to call her Johnny, so that's what we did. She was like, Johnny, I want to become a minister. I feel as though I've been called to ministry, and because of her setting where she
Mhm.
was, she felt as though she couldn't be one. And Johnny Coleman just looked at her and said, Barbara, what's stopping you?
Hmm.
Then it dawned on her that the identity that she had taken on based upon her religious beliefs stopped her from fulfilling her calling.
Wow. Say that again.
The identity that she had took on because of her group culture or group identity stopped her from fulfilling her calling.
Wow. That's really powerful what you just said. That is truly powerful. I won't even name the religion, but a really good friend of mine, I attend her Bible study every Wednesday because I like to see what they talk about and how it correlates to, our religion, the conversation, the tone of it. And what I found out is that in her religion, the women are not allowed to speak up, are not allowed to speak in front of the church to the audience at all, period, at any point. And I
Mm-hmm.
just kind of was like, okay. And I said, well, you guys manage the Bible studies though. Oh, yeah, we can do that. So you're allowed to teach the people about the religion, but you're not allowed to get up and speak in front of people to the masses, only to small groups. Yes, because in our religion, the men are the leaders. And I said to myself, that's just very interesting. And I didn't do any pushback, but also there's some other things that I think that's very interesting within that religion. But it really did surprise me that this person, and we've been like really good friends since college, her concept of life is built around this religion, her identity,
Mm-hmm.
everything is processed through this religion. So when I say things to her, it kind of, I ask her questions all the time. Well, if you feel that way about God and what you're doing, how do you feel about what goes around in the universe? Like, how do you really envision God in your religion? And I always ask that question because they call him another name. And so I'm just kind of like always asking questions as it relates to that. And I say to her, our lives are very parallel. Do you see anything different in respect to my religion versus yours? Like, not to do a comparison, but I don't feel the weight that she does. And of course, I invited her to listen to a couple of your sessions online. I sent her some of Michael Beckwith 15-minute meditations. Thank you so much, Gaylon. I'm so tuned in. And by the way, those are great things to do during the day, and I do them. But I find that a lot of religions speak very harshly in a very harsh tone, as if, I don't know, this being is very negative. And I'm not understanding. I'm thinking it's a positive. Your interaction with this should be very positive and influence you to do positive things. So I'm really concerned in relation to that. And I do see where people can lose their identity, their own personal
Mm-hmm.
in that, because you're so caught up in that the religion. So I don't know. The question I do want to ask before we go to commercial break is, do you ever see people who come from other religions who come into the unity family, then I guess I don't want to say go through a transformation or have to sit down, and is there some kind of, like, I'm sure they have a lot of questions because it's 100% different than what they were experiencing. And I know you're basically one of the head ministers. So do you go through counseling when somebody's coming in? I'm asking, I just want to know, from other religions, Pentecostals, whatever, Baptist. I was a Baptist. I was just different.
Well, yes, I've bumped into it. And normally, when you have someone that's coming into the larger New Thought movement,
Hmm.
whether it's UFBL like me, Unity, Centers for Spiritual Living, which some people call Science of Mind, Divine Science, or some of the independents, the majority of people, because the majority of people that come into our churches
Mhm.
come from other religious backgrounds, Catholic, Baptist, Pentecostal, evangelical
Mhm.
backgrounds. The majority of them, especially in the Black culture, is mainly Baptist, Catholic, and Pentecostal.
Mhm.
So, when I was growing up, Pentecostal was called sanctified.
It
My
was.
grandmother, I didn't even know what Pentecostal was
That's
until I came
was.
to know, because all I heard was that's a sanctified church.
Exactly.
But anyway, I digress. So normally, if I'm doing marriage counseling, I'll bring up, if I'm doing the wedding, normally one of the individuals is a member of my church. So
Okay.
now I'm having conversations around it. And these are some of the questions that come up, because children and things of that nature, you have to get a handle on it. What I've noticed, at least in my experience, and this is not the
Okay.
experience of others, in my
Right.
experience is, um, I bump into people who, what I would call, for the sake of this conversation, okay,
Mhm.
these aren't terms that you, okay, let me Google these terms. This is for the sake of this conversation. What I would call three categories:
Okay.
hard literalist, soft literalist, and indifferent but identify. Okay. Hard literalist is, this is what my religion taught. This is what I believe. Everything in what my religion teaches about this is basically factual, true, and should be practiced.
Hmm.
Soft literalists are, yeah, I believe that the general gist of it is, I believe the big stuff, but I'm not into the details. I'm not in all this reading and all of this whatever. I try to be a good person, but I'm loose with these rules, because I'm not in it like that. But
Right.
okay. Then there's the person who is neutral but identifies. What that
Mhm.
means is they don't really go to church. They don't. They'll show up. If need be, Mama invites them to a particular day
Mhm.
or brunch or something like that. They're not really into the study of religion. But if you ask them, they'll say, "I'm a Christian." Now, I'm a, I'm a, I'm in, I'm a Jew, or I'm
Mhm.
a Muslim. But they're really closer to not just non-practicing,
Mhm.
but neutral, but identifying. And I think that
That's our
there's a difference.
holiday members. You talking about our holiday members?
Sometimes they're not even holiday members. They're just they identify because of their cultural upbringing.
Culture. Okay.
Okay. So what I've bumped into is, every blue moon I'll bump into someone who chooses to marry a hard literalist. Those
Hmm.
tend to be the harder conversations. All right. The soft literalists tend to they have their beliefs, but they're flexible enough to allow somebody else to have their beliefs. You go to your church, I go to mine. I'm not gonna go to church, you go to yours. The
Right.
I identify neutral, but I don't identify is like, you do you. You you know what you got when you got me. Stop trying to change me. I'm gonna do what I do. Um, all three can create their own problems. There's no
I
other
can
way for
see
me to
that.
say that. All three can create
I
their
can
own
see
problems,
that.
because if one person is a hard literalist and another person is neutral but
Right.
identify, um, you're gonna have the constant potential stress of trying to get that person to convert to a harder form of
Right.
literalism. So those that's just an example. Those can be some of the
Mhm.
challenges, and that can be within the same religion. We're not talking about hard literalist Christian versus neutral but identifying Muslim, or vice
Right.
versa.
Right.
It can be, when you
Wow.
take those three categories within one particular religion, and then you take them outside of the religion. Now you're dealing with a variety that can create all different type of dynamic conflicts.
I can see that. So, folks, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. And I'm going to tell you, the meta behind relationships is like the best show I think that's on the network. It
Thank you.
really helps you do a deep dive into where you are in these relationships. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think at any point during my dating life I've ever asked anybody your religion before I asked other things, right? I think I found out what their religion was because on Sunday it's like I'm going to church. Oh, well, what church do you go to? It's basically like a casual conversation. So I can't wait to get back to talk about dating and in religion because yeah, I need to learn some things because I need to get it together. Folks, we'll be right back after this quick commercial break on the 5F's to Love Network.
My name is Christine Burkett, the inventor of the 5F's to Love. This is a compatibility app. It's an app that gives you an opportunity to rate words that start with the letter F in chronological order of importance to you, to help you find your one true love, your soulmate, and the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. So after you've taken the time to rate your F's in chronological order, you send a link to the person, I don't know, you just met, or the person you've been dating for quite some time. Or maybe it's the person you've been married to for 30 to 40 to 50 years. And then you compare your top 5 F's to find out what things you have in common and things that you may perhaps need to work on. This is taking a simplistic perspective on how to find your one true love, your soulmate, the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And thank you for downloading the 5F's app.
Hey guys, welcome back. Gaylon, this is a hot topic with everything that's going on in dating and in religion. So I really appreciate you jumping in and just kind of, I don't know, addressing the issue, like they say, the elephant in the room. So when you think about, why can it be hard to date someone from another religion? Because a lot of people I found with the online dating, people dating in the metaverse, people just, casual, how can I say, the blind dating now, the speed dating. There's so many different ways to meet people. And I don't know if religion is the topic of discussion before they get to some other things. So can you kind of help us walk through that?
Well, the first reason why it can be hard is people love to be right. And religion promotes we're right and you're wrong. Religion in and of itself is tribal. And when I mean tribal, I mean there's my group and then there's your group.
Your group.
My group is right. Your group and every other group is wrong. And because human beings love to be right. When you start to pull, you've seen those games where I forgot what it's called, where they can put the pieces up and then you have to pull them out without making
that's Jingo.
Jingo. The human mind is like Jingo, if that's the name of it. And when you start to pull on certain beliefs, they're attached to other things. So when you start to make people question a particular thing about the religion, now they start to question all of the things about the religion. And that creates a problem because human beings love to be right. And their sense of identity, as I mentioned earlier, will often be wrapped up in their religious beliefs. People will affirm very strongly, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this. We believe this. This is why. And the challenge comes into play is with religious tribalism, and why it's so difficult to date is most religions believe that they're on God's side. And because they're on God's side, that means anyone who does not believe what they believe isn't on God's side, theologically. If you're on the side of God's deliverance, then somebody else is on the side of God's judgment. And if God can judge a group and you're representing God's righteousness or rightness in the world, then that's a slippery slope to condemning anyone who doesn't believe what you believe. And then that slippery slope goes from condemnation and judgment to potential, as we see, which we see all over the world, the potential of either trying to convert or eradicate those who don't believe what you believe. Now, in the Western society, we don't do eradication necessarily violently always, most of the time, but we eradicate people through condemnation, through, they're not saved. They're not heathens. They're pagans. They're, the devil. They're this, they're that. And what ends up happening is we culturally devalue people who do not believe what we believe. And, it's sort of simple. I have a friend of mine who, I don't want to say a friend, let me rephrase that, colleague, because I'm, how I am about identifying that term, a colleague who amongst her many spiritual beliefs, she practices hoodoo. Now, that by itself, she bumps into a person who's Baptist, Pentecostal, Catholic, whatever. They don't hear this is a ancient cultural African spirituality. They're thinking she's a devil worshiper,
witchcraft, something like that.
Witchcraft, occult, whatever. Versus it was her way of reconnecting what she felt as though was her African spirituality, which is her right. Now, in the United States, she's free to do that without physical consequence. Now, but that's problematic when you're dealing with the dating world.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully that helped. Now,
that helped a lot. And I'm going to tell you, it was a guest that was on another podcast in the network, and someone was viewing. And I got a call because the person mentioned that she wears stones, different type of stones. And the person said, well, that's witchcraft, because they were saying certain stones, give out this type of energy. And, the person was just kind of really put off as soon as the person said that in the interview they were on. And I said, well, so you stopped listening because they mentioned stones and that they wore certain stones? And they said, yeah. So you're right. That was just like it's like everything else the person said and everything they had gone through was null and void, because now they're considered to be practicing witchcraft because they believe in stones. So,
right. So, what I try to tell people is, regardless of the religion, you're still dealing with the human experience. And before you have a sense of identity tied up into a religion, recognize that you're a human being dealing with the same stuff. People want to be safe. They want to prosper. They want to have freedom of expression. They want, they want peace. They want to be able to love who they want to love. These are general things. Then religion, cultural beliefs in society gets in the mix and tries to strip people's natural desire for these freedoms and replace them often with a sense of identity. I've told people often that, with my sense of freedom, that I couldn't be in something that had to dictate to me a particular way. Now, and I tell people this because people don't realize this. When you're identify as a New Thought person, New Thought minister, Christian metaphysics, etc. That being said, it's harder in many ways because our thing is your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your consciousnly. Much harder than what you're going to wear today, how you're going to dress.
Exactly.
Okay. You're out of alignment with divine law with the way you're thinking, and we recognize the consequence of being out of alignment with truth. Means that you create your own circumstances that are not always harmonious. Now, that's and we take responsibility for it. Now, that can be very difficult and hard. So even in what we believe, you bump into people who want to scapegoat other people, scapegoat evil entities in religion, whoever their enemy is in their religion and things of that nature. And you have somebody talking about, no, it's your consciousness. This is what you've drawn to yourself. This is what you're radiating and attracting. People don't want to always take that level of responsibility. So it's not like, okay, well, if you have this sense of freedom, it automatically means you can just interact with people and they get it. No, not
No.
necessarily, because if there's going to be a challenge, like any other thing, I have a sense of identity that's wrapped around what I consider my freedom of expression. But within my freedom of expression are what I consider hard, fast rules of integrity, honesty, things of that nature. So if you bump into someone who doesn't have those same values based upon how they view things in religion, it can be a problem. One of the things that I think that I do want to mention is people meet people that they're attracted to. They they like them, they like what they're about, and then they go about the task of changing them. and that's not just done in religion, but in religion you have the weight of this is what God wants.
Yes.
And that's what makes it different. It's one thing to say, okay, I'm gonna give this person a makeover so I can make them perfect for me. But this is the person that you actually got attracted to, often fell in love with, and then when it came time to really get committed, now you want to change them into becoming somebody that you didn't meet. I think that's really, really a trip, and I'll just leave that at that.
And I will agree with you 100%. I think for me, I dated somebody and they didn't upfront tell me that they were Muslim. Like, we had gone out and I noticed, I'm eating salad, they eating salad, but I never paid attention to it until the conversation came up. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I just need to be transparent. I'm not looking to change my faith. I just made it very clear. I said, so if this is going to stop us from interacting, I'm good. I said, so you think about it. But for me, I'm not going to change my faith. And I said, because I'm not going to look good in a Chanel scarf wrapped around me like that. Because I and I said, I might get kicked out anyways, because a thigh might be out, a cleavage, And he laughed at me. He thought it was funny, but then he really thought about it. And I guess he said, he thought I was so amendable. And you were right. He thought that this person is so amendable that I could kind of maybe reshape her thoughts or her minds about doing this because she's so into me. And I just know I can't do that. So people need to be very clear about who they are and what they're open to doing. Now, if he was open to him working in his world and I'm working in mine and all the common great things that we have in common, we just kept it in this area, then it probably would have worked. But I think it was bigger than that for him, for his religion. So people, you really need to kind of focus on that and ask more questions. So when we get back from this quick commercial break, we're going to talk about how can we make this work? Because we know that people are now, again, scaling across the country, talking with people. So when we get back from this quick commercial break, Gaylon's going to talk us through how to really make this work. Because I know some of us would like to be with someone, but you need to figure out how to look at those differences and see what you can find in common with one another. Because again, Gaylon, to your point, they could be a really hardcore and you could be middle of the road. And if those religions, it's like the clash of the titans when it comes to that. So you might want to pay attention to this next segment because this is going to be a lot to talk about. And get your paper out. Yeah, I know you got to take notes. I got my sticky notes. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
What's up with it? Do it cause I love it and I stuck with it. We ain't with the subbing in the cut with it. Please none of the talks, I heard enough of it. Like, what you gonna do? Where you at? Who you with? You ain't really about this, don't talk about it. Really on the move, on the map, never slip. Keep your hands to your lips, don't talk about it. Real eyes, real lies all the time. Stand on it, if we said it, we don't walk around it. Loose lips, ain't ships, red cup, blue strips, new phone, who this? No, we don't allow it. Really on go, I don't know what's an off day. Now we on road, came from smoking in the hallway. Now we got shows, boys feeling like Broadway. Always look both ways, even on a crossway. Driving down Cross Bay, Out-town Barclays, really on big things. Came up a small way. Championship rings, baby, that's a ball game. Oh, she want a little bag, baby, that's small change. Yeah, that money talk. If we ain't cool, then cut me off. No breaking news, don't run your mouth. Thought it was the plug, now he running off. Thought it was a plug, now he running off.
I gotta tell you something I could do. I could be running around chasing you, but I won't. Cause I got better things to do. Rather spend my precious time chasing somebody who loves me too. If I got $1 for every time you slam the door.
Hey guys, welcome back to the 5 F's to Love. Today you are watching the Meta Behind Relationships with Gaylon McDowell. Gaylon, this is a hot topic. Religion and dating. This is like, I don't know, I feel like people need to be more focused on really having that conversation than what we're having. I think a lot of us are kind of not taking that into consideration. But you're getting ready to tell us how to make that work. I feel like it should be a checklist though. Like check.
I make a checklist. Well,
checklist. Go ahead. So the question I have for you is, how can we make this work when so many of us are dating online and in the metaverse, which is a whole different conversation within itself, and speed dating and blind dating. There's a lot of datings.
the first thing I would say is obviously a person should respect another person's identity, how they're choosing to show up. All right. Mm-hmm. If you want the freedom to show up the way you want to show up, then love says give that same freedom to someone else. And when I say give, that don't mean you're literally giving it to them. It means agreeing with it. All right.
Okay, Gaylon, wait, say that one more time so people understand what you're saying. I don't want people to get confused.
Okay. When I say give, it's not yours to give. That's what I'm saying. It's not yours to give. It's yours to agree with. You don't have a right to give or take someone's freedom. It's your right to give them in the context of agreement. All right. You're choosing to say, this is what values me. This is what in my opinion, the beauty of religion is that it is, as I said, in Bruce Lee said in Into the Dragon. You know, I am about Bruce. He said to the little boy at the Shaolin Temple, it's like a finger pointing at the moon. If you concentrate on the finger, you miss all the heavenly glory. Religion is a method that points people to divinity, to something bigger than the human experience, and that's beautiful. To the mysticism, that's the term I would use. I know that's not a normal word for a lot of religious people, but that just means the direct communion and communication with God. It gives people a sense of purpose and mission, and all those things are beautiful. And if you want the freedom to follow how you are engaging with a sense of purpose and alignment with God, give another person that same freedom. And when I say forgive, I mean agree with, not that you have the ability to say you can't show up the way you want to show up. But that's often how people adapt to religion. They're dating one person versus another, and they say you have to adapt. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this perspective is when you bump into a lot of women often will say, okay, I'm religious, but I got a good guy. Let me leave him alone. He provides, he loves for me, he takes care of me, he takes care of our children. Yeah, I would love for him to come to church often. I can get him to come sometimes and he won't. Men tend to be different. A very religious man wants his woman, his wife, his children to show up a particular kind of way. And it's normally not left alone. All right. Men often want their women to adapt, completely hook, line, and sinker, meaning this is what I do. This is what we are doing.
The family. This is a family dude.
This is why, just as a secret that might not be well known in the church growth world, And I've been to many seminars and I've read the books and I've heard this from the leaders who teach church growth.
Mhm.
It is understood, if you get the man, you get the whole family. If you get the woman, you might not even get the husband and children.
Wow. Are you
might-
kidding me?
If you get the man, they often in churches, they try this because think about it, churches are 75% women, 80%
You're right.
women, right?
You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So church growth experts
Mhm.
work very hard to get the man, even though culturally churches are supported by women, which is
Hmm.
it's funny to me because I often tell women, like, your work and your money support this ministry, and then somebody tells you you can't be a leader is, in my opinion,
Right.
flexing. And I'll just leave that at that without
Yeah.
disrespecting anybody else's thing. So how do you make it work? You have to respect another person's ability to be free, just like you want your freedom. 2,
Okay.
you can't have a sense of superiority. If one person feels superior over the other because of their religious beliefs, that creates a conflict that is very challenging to get around. 3, making it work. Have the conversation about what are the key values and bottom lines that you need. You know, I'm a bottom line person. What are the real bottom lines about what we're talking about? And if we can agree on these things, we can be either a loose literalist or neutral and identifying, and we can have a great time together, growing and together, enjoying each other and raising children, if that's what you want to do, versus creating conflict about every little thing because the religious identities are conflicting. Conflict isn't a bad thing.
Right.
Conflict is only bad when we put judgment on it and we make somebody right and somebody wrong, instead of understanding, okay, what do we need to do to make this work for us? Because I love to succeed. But I've been in the religious world long enough, and even if I wasn't, to know that love is not enough to make a relationship work. And anybody that thinks it is a fool. And I hate to say that.
But I'm glad you say that, because I think
Excuse
with
me for
women,
calling you all fools out there. That's not
no,
normally.
it's Gaylon.
But
It's the
that's
truth
how
is the
I
truth.
talk, and it's very
Exactly.
challenging for me not to sometimes just say it the way I want to say it. So go ahead, please, Christine.
No, but Gaylon, I think what you said is very much true, because with a lot of women, it's, to your point, a woman will change her religion for a man. A man, if he's immersed in his religion, is less likely. Now, if he's middle of the road, you might get him to come, but not every Sunday, but you will get him to attend some Sundays. So that marketing or that concept behind it, I think, is so true, but I also think it's directly related on how we look at roles in relationship, and just the conversation in totality about what we're doing. And one of the things I said to a really, really good friend of mine, I love that we can just talk. She said, it doesn't make a difference what I say or do. He sets the tone for this relationship. And I said, are you recognizing this moment? Or are you just talking out loud? She says, no, I'm recognizing this moment for what it is. I could want to be with him. I could want to marry him, but marriage doesn't happen until the man asks the woman. So I could feel or think a lot of things, but it's not going to happen until he wants it to happen. And I was just like, that's an epiphany from what we would call the executive woman in corporate America. She actually, I feel sometimes maybe people do listen to the show. I don't know what's happening, but I think she had an epiphany. And I'm going to say to you, she didn't really digest it very well. Her feelings were hurt.
Well, that's a different subject, but
Yeah.
it still goes along with the concept of,
Yeah.
culturally, most of the time, women want men to propose, and and often women tend to be more flexible when it comes to the transformation of their beliefs. But I've seen times where the woman changed and the man still wanted to be a light fundamentalist or neutral and identifying. and it created a real problem. Sometimes when we get into the, you know, really hard fundamentalist religions, you know, hard versions of, very strict versions of Christianity, very strict versions of Islam, very strict versions like a Hebrew Israelite, you know, Jehovah Witness, very, very strict.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because that's where the conflict was, right there.
Right. So, and again, I'm not saying that people don't have a right to their religious beliefs.
Right.
Sometimes people who, this is just my opinion, sometimes people are so wild in their pre-religious life that they trend towards something that creates a lot of strictness and rules. You know, Malcolm X might not have been able to convert to regular Islam. He needed Nation of Islam rules,
right,
before he was able, because it was, this is how you show up, this is how you dress, this is what you think, this is how you behave, this is what, like, it's a, you know, I have a lot of, I grew up with friends in the Nation, so I know that they have very strict rules about how a man or a woman shows up. Now, for some people, that's structure. That's the term I want to use. Is necessary for their well-being. All right. You know, you take a person like Vanity, that singer that passed away some years ago, who often was just, you know, she got caught up in the Hollywood and the drugs and the sex and all of the stuff, and she became a hardcore Pentecostal minister who, you know, was, you know, the end of the days, Jesus is about to come back and blow the world up, etc. But she needed the structure, to get her life together. Okay, so I'm not knocking it. Okay,
right.
What I would say is that's not for me.
Exactly. Yeah. And I like that you said that, because the concern, and I guess I kind of left out, is that she's a Jehovah's Witness and he's not. And he was just listening to her conversation. And again, they're in a relationship. Now, the problem is, he said to her, why do you need somebody to interpret the Bible for you? Why can't you read it for yourself? And he asked her a lot of questions. So in his mind, and I said to her, you know, after that, I said, you do realize he's never going to become a Jehovah's Witness. He's made it clear that he's in disagreement with your religion. So what are you going to do? She says, well, I really care about him. I don't want to lose him. And so in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, is this a red flag moment? Like, what do you do when you're so attached to this religion that has become part of your identity that this person is questioning? And it's made it very clear in a nice way, by the way. He was nice about it. But his attitude is, we don't need anybody to interpret the Bible to us or tell us how to live. You can read this and interpret it for yourself and your family. You don't need anybody else. So when we talk about that, you know, we're going to come right back, folks, and we're going to talk about red flags, because I think that's a conversation you really need to have. It's not that a person is against your religion. It's just at some point, the dating and the religion does come up, and you guys need to start talking about it, because I'm going to be clear. I could probably date a Muslim. But if I have to become a Muslim's wife, I don't know if I could go full Muslim. I might be showing up, but I don't know if I'm going to show up right. So you got to think about that. That tells me if I see a man in a bow tie, I might want to walk the other way. I don't care how much he looked like Idris Elba. I'm going to have to walk away. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
Give me some directions to get to you. Ain't gonna waste my time. I know that we got connection. I think about you. You're on my mind. Yeah, I'm going out of my mind. Yeah, for you, my love. You tell me
Hey guys, welcome back to the Meta Behind Relationships with Gaylon McDowell. If you're watching, this is a pre-recorded session. And as always, Gaylon is going to check social media because he wants to follow up and get back with you on any questions that you may have. Gaylon, we need to discuss red flags. I feel like right now, a lot of people who are dating and the religion is part of their identity, they're hitting some red flags, but emotionally, they're ignoring them and they're just kind of skating through, figuring, like you said, love will find a way, right? And you made it clear love is not going to find a way. You need to have that conversation. So I'm going to ask you, what are the red flags that you need to note, that you need to sit down and have a real conversation at this point?
The first flag is the hard literalism. Okay, what are your beliefs about this particular thing? Is this something that not only you need to believe, but you need other people to believe that are around you? Because some people, they can't be around other circles of people because the people don't believe what they believe. They're religions that don't necessarily promote. I'm not saying they tell you not to, but they don't promote being around people of various religious beliefs or no religious beliefs. All right. So I think the hard literalism is a red flag if it's necessary for them to have other people that are connected to them believe it. All right. So if we're around each other, like one of my buddies, one of my really good friends is more of like a Pentecostal Word of Faith Christian, and I'm not. So he can say what he needs to say, and I can say what I need to say, and then we get back to watching the movies and the games, and it's all good because it's not necessary for me or him to make us believe what the other believes. And where we match up, great, and where we don't, I can say, well, I don't believe that, man, and that's the end of that, because he doesn't need that to be. But some people need people that they're connected to believe what they believe. And that's the sense of superiority. And that's the religious tribalism that I was mentioning earlier. Another red flag is when people start to prick at your sense of identity. In the case of a man talking to a woman. So so you think that dress might be a little too short? Do you think that that hairstyle? Have you ever thought about when you show up at church wearing a hat, because that might be a thing, having your head covered. Pricking at your behaviors. In other words, it's not done always so directly. It's chipping away at your sense of identity.
Nicely.
So you can conform to who they want you to be to make it more comfortable for them. They're not doing the same adjustments for you.
No.
All right. It's no compromise. This is subtle my way or the highway. That's a red flag. Obviously, the red flags of condemnation and judgment about somebody else's beliefs and making them wrong is a very strong red flag. What I would tell people is simply this. Most people who are dating and start talking about their hardcore religious beliefs are really, in my opinion, even when they say they're hard literalists about certain things. Why? How do we know this? Especially in the Western culture. Christianity, Islam, Judaism, pretty much in their various versions, whether it's First Church of Latter-day Saints, Jehovah's Witness, Nation of Islam. I'm talking about the variants of the major three in the United States. Most of them don't believe in premarital sex. We know the majority of people practice premarital sex. So they're saying, I don't believe this, and you need to change that, but we're doing this, which points that what I, as a minister, have often said to people, you only focus on what you want to focus on, and what you want is important for your own comfortability. But when it
Yes.
comes to a rule that you don't like, now it's exceptionally flexible.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that difference does make a difference. Now, if you bump into a hard fundamentalist, a hard literalist, and another hard literalist, you can also have, you can still have conflict. And the reason being is they can be hard fundamentalists from different backgrounds.
Right.
And the way your hard fundamentalism shows up or literalism is not the same as mine. So the real issue is this. The ultimate red flag is that you need me to not be me to be with you.
Say that again.
You need me to not be me to be with you. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't improve.
Right.
They shouldn't grow, shouldn't evolve. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't compromise.
Right.
That's relationship. A person like me, for instance, I don't have a problem saying to someone, I'm married, but I don't have a problem saying, if what I'm asking you to do makes you feel as though that you are losing a sense of identity, that you can't be you being with me, then you don't need to be with me.
I like that. That's a good opener.
I mean, point blank.
That's a good opener.
Because I'm not trying to force you to be somebody you don't want to be.
Right.
But this is what I need and what I value in a relationship. See, but people think that they can manipulate their way into those type of circumstances.
Right.
All right. So in that sense, that's not a religious belief, but that's a hard literalism for me. Get my point?
Yeah.
So if you feel as though that you need to be somebody else to be with me, and I believe in freedom, then that challenges my belief that everybody should have the ability to show up how they choose to show up. And if we can have enough agreements to where we can make a life work, that's one thing. And when we can't, then we need to do something different without making somebody wrong. You have a right to show up the way you want to show up. I have a right not to accept it. Stop. But people rather manipulate because the sex is good, which is one of the main things, or they lifestyle. They check the other boxes, attractiveness, things of that nature, versus getting to the place of understanding the real question: what do I need in a relationship to be satisfied and fulfilled? And if this sense of religious identity is one of those things that not only is important to me, but it's important for my environment, then that needs to be communicated up front and asked up front. But like you said earlier, people don't have these conversations going in. All right. So what ends up happening is they bump into it after they've had sex, after they've committed, after they've fallen in love. And now they found out after they stopped hearing the R&B songs in the background of their minds, that now they got to deal with real world stuff. And this is where the breakdowns start. I remember talking to someone years ago who, and I mentioned this to you before, who said, I met the perfect woman, but she's a Buddhist. And he was a hard literalist. He was a hard literalist except for sex.
Exactly.
Okay, let me be clear about that. He was a hard literalist except for sex. No, he was die hard. Jesus died for my sins, blood. The Bible is literal. Everything is true. Adam and Eve were real people. Jesus is about to come back. People who don't believe what I believe go to hell.
Right.
So this woman was perfect. Career, fine, attitude, behavior, personality, perfect, educated, had money, everything. But
she's a Buddhist.
And he couldn't do it.
Wow.
He couldn't do it. He broke up with her because he needed a Christian wife.
Wow.
And here's the thing. I agreed with him. because
You
he would have
agree?
made
Oh
her
yeah,
life miserable.
miserable. That's
And
true. He
she
would
would have
have
made his life miserable
miserable. Just
because
being
he would have been
her
so right. Because his identity, his
was
family, his
tied
mother,
to
his siblings, his
yeah,
everything were wrapped around this sense of
right,
hard literalism.
right.
And then you got this person that comes in and like, I don't have a anthropomorphic concept of God. I don't have this deity in the sky. We're Buddhists. We get in alignment. We're
Yes.
one with the law, and we practice our karma, and we do our mantras, and it's a big difference from
That would have
thinking
been a huge conflict.
right. So in my opinion, he did the right thing,
You're right. He did do the right thing.
and I think that but for me, his integrity would not allow him to go forward. Now, did he
Right.
miss out on a great opportunity and a great woman?
Probably so.
Absolutely.
Probably so. Probably the person he should have been with.
Absolutely.
Period.
And I
Hands
agree
down.
with that because he was excited telling me all the things that work.
Yes. But
But as you know, Reverend Ike used to say, you need to get your butt out of the way.
all right, guys, on that note, because Reverend Ike, he's a closer. I loved it. So you guys know I'm out of here because Gaylon's got to close out, but I'm going to tell you he's got a homework for you. He's got a part 1 and a part 2. So please pay attention to your homework assignment. As always, Gaylon, thank you so much for being a part of the 5Fs to Love Network. We really do appreciate you. See you guys next weekend.
So I have a couple of things I want to do for homework, and I'm going to add one thing that Christine didn't add. And if it's available, I want to make sure that she puts it whenever she posts it. The first thing is, if you go to beliefnet.com, there's a quiz called Belief-O-Matic, the Belief-O-Matic quiz. And what it is a series of multiple choice questions, 20 of them, that when you finish them, it tells you what religion your beliefs more closely connect to. It gives you a percentage. And it'll say, okay, your religion, your beliefs is, Progressive Baptist or Shiite Muslim or Unitarian Universalist or New Thought. I did the test. I was 100% New Thought. So it depends. I had one of my brothers do it. He came back Christian Science. He didn't even know what Christian Science was. So it's just so this is something that I think would be great for you to do. Now, if you have a partner, it would be great to see if they will be willing to do it. Don't try to make anybody do anything, but I think it's good to be able to challenge your mind with some of these questions. And if it's somebody that you want to talk to, say, you know what, my religious beliefs matter to me a lot. I would love for you to take this just so we can have some conversations around it and just see what shows up. I think, but the main thing is know what you really believe about a thing, because most often people don't think about real serious theological questions until it comes up. The second thing was a book that I use when I'm doing premarital counseling with people, which is called Before I Say I Do by Todd Outcalt. I have the couples read them, the engaged couple read them, and then I go through like, okay, any red flags pop up, any questions, any concerns came up from the reading of this book, because it has like a 101 questions. It deals with religion. It deals with how you raise your children, how you discipline your children, how you deal with money, how you deal with whatever. It deals with those questions, but those religious questions they make a difference. So that's a great thing. Now, I saw on the commercial that Christine might have her quiz up now, her 5Fs for Love quiz. If she can put on the link to this podcast when it comes out later, because I did do I interviewed her on a separate something else before this podcast existed about her 5Fs for Love method. So go to the website, the link, I'm sure she'll put it on there, and whatever's available, make sure you do it, because faith is one of those things that she covers a lot in that program. So give yourself the benefit of your own transformation. And remember this, it doesn't have to be religion and dating does not necessarily have to be a disqualifier, but you do need to pay attention. We live in a multiracial, multicultural society, multi-religious society. Therefore, the likelihood that you're going to bump into somebody outside of your religious culture that believes what you believe across the board will be rare. Don't disqualify somebody automatically, but be mindful and be in integrity that if what they believe can't work with you and your soul, or you need someone to believe what you believe and practice what you believe and dress the way you dress and talk the way you talk to be with you, then that needs to be communicated up front. Be in integrity. Stop trying to make somebody you. And if you want freedom, give other people freedom. And if you all agree on this is how you choose to show up, then beautiful, wonderful, go do what you got to do. And if not, let a person part, or let them be who they need to be while you choose to be who you choose to be. Thank you. God bless you, and enjoy the rest of your day.